Jamie, it's great to be back with you here today to talk about how a prospective client can prepare for an initial consultation with us. So usually what happens is we're contacted by email and we work with the prospect to set up an initial consultation. Usually a video meeting is what we like. It can be done over the phone, but maybe you can give some tips on how they can prepare for this meeting with you. Most likely it would be you in the company or myself or with one of the team members.
Yeah, absolutely. So we get that question every now and again where people ask like, hey, how do I have to prepare for the first meeting? And the short generic answer is you don't have to prepare. I'm going to guide you or like the prospective client through the whole conversation. Typically, it starts out with me just asking them about their current situation, what made them reach out, what they're hoping to accomplish. Then, of course, I'll also talk a little bit about our company, myself, what we do, how we are set up. And then lastly, we can talk about any specific questions that the prospective client might have. So what you can do, or what I recommend you do, is typically when someone reaches out to us for an initial consultation, I send out our company presentation, an introduction letter, and also some links on where they can find more information about us online. So I think it makes sense to just familiarize yourself with our services in general. So on our website, we have like the minimum investment volume, we have the fee schedule. We just talk about like what our specific like service is, how we construct portfolios. And then if you're curious, you will find a lot of information on YouTube, our blog posts, etc. So I think it helps to just have a more productive meeting if the person has already read a little bit about what we do. And then again, it also helps if they maybe think about questions that might be interesting or relevant to them. Sometimes if the question list is very extensive or if the questions are very complex, they can send them beforehand so I can prepare. But most of the questions are questions that we get on a frequent basis and that I can also answer without any specific preparation. Questions or information that we usually like to talk about is like the total net worth of the person or family that I'm talking to, what kind of account structure that they're looking to use to set up the account. So will it be a personal account? Will it be like a US revocable living trust? Will it be an offshore asset protection trust, an LLC, a self-directed IRA? So if they have already thought a little bit about how much money they have, how much money they're looking to send, what kind of account they want, that would be helpful. But again, it's not necessary. We can also figure it out together during the conversation. And then another thing that we're going to cover during the conversation as well is what kind of bank would be the best fit for the prospective client. So we have options in Switzerland, we have options in Liechtenstein. So maybe that's something to think about as well. What is particularly important to you when selecting a bank? Do you want to have a smaller bank, a larger bank? Is like an online access super important to you? Do you want to store physical gold, or do you want to store Bitcoins or like other cryptocurrencies? Just that I think is helpful to think about beforehand. But once again, it is not required. What do you think? Do you have anything to add?
No, I think you covered it really, really well in general, where I think on a personal level, it's always good to see the background of who the company is. Like it helps to know who you're meeting with. You mentioned that, on our website, whether it's through these other kind of videos. I mean, if people are listening to this, they're at least aware that we have a YouTube channel where we go through a lot of these things kind of in a broad sense already. I would also point to our insights page. So like as an example from our conversation now, you mentioned, do they want to bank in Liechtenstein or Switzerland? Well, what's the difference? What's the difference between those jurisdictions? On our insights page, we write blogs every 2 weeks that cover a lot of different topics, whether it's an economic analysis report or a blog post covering the two jurisdictions, how they differ, how they're similar, how they function. So just a little bit of due diligence. But I think, as you mentioned, you almost don't have to prepare if you don't want to. But for us, we always like to know who we're meeting with. If it's with a business partner, we want to do a little bit of research and know them. And, with our wealth of information, we're pretty easy to find out, to see who we are. But yeah, I think you covered it very well, and I think it gives a great starting point for people looking to speak with us.
Yeah, maybe additionally to the marketing material that they can find online, they can also find our regulatory information online. So in the footnotes of our website, you can find all our brochures, so the ADV2A brochure, which is like a regulatory document that we have to publish by like the SEC's rules and regulations. You can also find the ADV3 brochure, and you can also find some information on how we are regulated on the Swiss side of things. So if you are more interested in the compliance, you can certainly find some information on that as well. Maybe one other point that will probably also going to be brought up during the conversation is the source of funds. So it's always relevant for us to know how the wealth was achieved. Was it savings through career activities? Was it an inheritance? Was it the sale of a real estate? Because depending on what the source of the funds is, the documentation for the account opening is going to be different. So that certainly makes sense to think about that, like the kind of money that you want to bring overseas, where was that generated? And then maybe as a very last point, things that are also going to be covered during the conversation is if there are anything that could complicate the account opening process. So if you had any past lawsuits, if you're currently involved in a lawsuit, pending divorces, things like that, we always recommend to bring them up proactively. We can look at every situation, we can talk through every situation, but we certainly have to have a full picture to give you the right advice on whether we are able to move forward, and if we are, which bank would be the best fit, and what kind of like documentations we will need to present the case properly with the bank.
Absolutely. And I think that covers it perfectly. And just a little tidbit that after our conversations, we also send follow-up emails with next steps, things that might be outstanding, what would be needed, further information. So while consultation is a limited amount of time, there's communication follow-up where we really stress that ongoing communication even afterwards. It's not just made a decision that there's no more communication afterwards.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I mean, this video is just to give people a sense for what they might expect. We do those calls on a very regular basis. We have several of those a week. So we are going to guide you through the conversation. We are going to guide you through the process. There's nothing to be worried about. Those initial consultations are free. So if you do think that offshore wealth management would be interesting to you, then just feel free to search our website, reach out to you, and then we can take it from there.
Absolutely. Thanks, Jamie.